family. Okay. But you know them. Okay, very nice. Okay. As you get older, you sit down. Right? Somebody asked me the other day, because I've been doing this for a few months, for the homily, sitting on a stool, not because I have to, it's because I just want to be different. And somebody asked me recently, where did you get the idea? Well, I'll tell you where I got it. From a guy on television. Guy down in Texas has a ministry, and he came out one day and sat on a stool, and I said, geez, that is different. I think maybe I'd like to do that. It makes it very informal. So I've been doing it ever since. So that's where it came from. It wasn't my idea. Thursday, November 28th. It's the fourth Thursday of the month. We celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was first celebrated in what year? 1621. Where? Plymouth, Massachusetts. Who was there? Pilgrims and Native Americans. About 90 Native Americans came and gathered with the Pilgrims for a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to brag for a minute because it's part of my lineage. But I've done a lot of genealogy of my family line. And my great-grandfather, 8 times removed, okay, was at the first Thanksgiving in Plymouth, Massachusetts. They came over on the Mayflower. The family's name was Hopkins. And it's on my grandmother Reese's side. It would be, she was a foster, it's on their side. My grandmother Reese, before she died, never believed that. She said, oh, you've made that up. I thought I wouldn't make that up. I went in and found it. Well, they took a trip, my grandparents, before they died, to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and they called me from Plymouth, Massachusetts, and said, you didn't lie. They said, we found their names. We found my grandparents' names on the plaque at the Plymouth Rock, the Hopkins names. So it's true. I said, well, I told you it was. So that is wonderful in my own heart to have known that way back my family was there in Plymouth Rock in 1621. Then 242 years later, President Abraham Lincoln said, we'll make it a national traditional day. So it took a long time from that first Thanksgiving to make it a national day for America. Just a little history for you, okay? So you're going to get together with your family and your friends on Thursday. You're going to eat turkey, I'm sure, and along with lots of other things. And of course, what goes along with Thanksgiving? Football. So you're going to also watch football sometime before you go to bed that night because that's part of the day. But you know what? There's 365 days to be thankful, not just one day out of the year. And you know, Jesus Christ did not preach. He didn't. He taught. Always remember that. He was not a preacher. He was a teacher. He never had a church. He never was a rabbi in the synagogue. He was simply a teacher. But the unique thing about Jesus is he lived out the teachings. See, a lot of us have a lot of doctrine and a lot of rules that we believe in, but a lot of us don't live it out in daily life in the way we behave. He did. That's what made him so unique. And the thing that Jesus Christ wanted to do every day of his ministry was to instill values of dignity in every person he met. Because if a person doesn't feel they got dignity, they're a nobody. And a lot of bad things happen. So he meets in our scripture today a man by the name of Zacchaeus, a name that you don't usually hear very much. It's a Jewish name because Jesus was Jewish. He worked amongst the Middle Eastern people. And Zacchaeus was a righteous man, but he was a crook. Okay, how can you be righteous and be a crook? Well, you can. A lot of people do that. He didn't live what he believed. He didn't follow all the rules. He was out trying to make a fast buck, but he wasn't making it in the right way. He was underhanded. He was pilfering people's money. He was taking tax money. He was doing lots of things that weren't right. And so his family didn't respect him. His neighbors didn't respect him. And the community at large didn't respect him. And he heard that there was a guy named Jesus that took care of people whether they were bad or good. I mean, not took care of them in the wrong way. He took care of them in a good way. And so Zacchaeus, because of his embarrassment about who he was, he didn't want Jesus to see him. He heard Jesus was going to be in Jerusalem. He was going to be teaching. And so he climbed up in a sycamore tree and said, I'll perch up here, and he won't see me, and I can hear him over there, and I'll find out what this guy's all about. Well, guess what? Did you ever get caught when you didn't think you were going to get caught? Isn't that an awful feeling? Yeah, Bob said he had that feeling once. He got caught. So he got up in the sycamore tree, and Jesus is walking along, getting ready to talk to the crowd, and he happens to look up, and he sees Zacchaeus up there. He said, Zacchaeus, what are you doing up there? He didn't want to be known, and he couldn't believe that Jesus knew his name. Well, his name was known all over because he's a crook. Everybody knows the name of crooks. Come on down, Zacchaeus. What? Come on down. Why? Because I want to go to your house. Well, nobody wants to come to my house. I'm a crook. I do. I want to go to your house. The religious people that live by the rules said, see what Jesus is doing? He's going to the crook's house. Of all the places he could eat, look where he's going. To the biggest crook in Jerusalem. That tells who he really is, doesn't it? He doesn't know good from bad. If he knew who Zacchaeus really was, he would shun him and stay away. Because that's what the religious people did to the crooks of their day. They had nothing to do with them. They just shunned them and kept them apart. They weren't welcome in the synagogue. They weren't welcome to participate in the religious rites. They were second-rate people. But you know what? Jesus wasn't concerned about rules. If he was concerned about rules, he never would have done what he did. He abandoned the rules. I'm not against theology. I'm not against fundamental truths. But I'll tell you something. If you're going to believe those things, live them. Because too many people can tell you what they believe, but they can't do it in daily life. And that's what counts. It's not what's up here, it's what's in here that makes all the difference in the world. You can know 99 rules up here, 99 theological truths, but if you can't live it out in your temperament, in your daily life, you don't have it. It's just knowledge. And knowledge will never change you. It has to be a spiritual renewal from within. Knowledge will tell you what's right and what's wrong and give you all kinds of information, but it will not change your heart. The knowledge is when you discover who you are in the light of who God is, then the change comes. Because you find out that there's somebody that cares about you and will forgive you and will love you and will walk with you no matter what. And that's what Zacchaeus found. The people that said they were in the synagogue every Saturday would not give him a morsel of bread. Here is a man who is also a Jew who comes to him and says, I want to go to your house. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that this man who preached love and peace would want to be in his presence. If you tread people down long enough, they don't never want to get up. Did you know that? If you kick people long enough, they quit. If you denounce people long enough, there's no hope. And Jesus Christ would not do that. Because Jesus was concerned about two things, love and forgiveness. And if he could give love and forgiveness, he knew people could change. That's where it all happened. And Jesus wanted to make a connection with Zacchaeus very, very much. And when they got into the house, Zacchaeus immediately said to him, I'll pay back 4 times everything I've stolen. Isn't it, dynamic. Once somebody knows you care about them, something changes. Something happens. Zacchaeus said, I know who I am, but I believe I can be somebody else. And Jesus says, guess what? Salvation has come to you in your house today. You were part of Abraham like I am, but salvation has come to you today. Your heart has been changed. And you know, this morning, people, we all need to recognize there's value in every single person in this world. I read a lot of people that go before the judge, and I know we have to have courts, and we have to have laws, and we have to have judges, but we also have to have love. And when I read what some of the judges say to some of the people they're sentencing, it's terrible. It's unnecessary. They make them to be the lowest person in society because they broke the rule. And who hasn't broke rules in our society? Who hasn't had at least one crime probably somewhere along the way, at least being stopped in a traffic violation? And yet you get somebody in front of a bench with a judge who says, you are despicable. I read one the other day. You are a despicable human being. And he was a DWI. Yes, that's a terrible thing. But it doesn't make him a despicable human being. And you see, if you tell that person that long enough, the jail's not going to change him. The prison system. I worked in the prison system. I couldn't stay in it because there's no hope. They just take in and let them out and bring them back and let them out and bring them in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because the superintendent where I was working said to me one day, you need to know something. This is no Sunday school. Well, I didn't think it was. And these people are never going to change. And I thought, if that is your temperament as a superintendent of this institution, that these people are never going to change, there's no hope. There's no hope for anybody here. And that's when I made my decision. I can't be part of a system that says nobody is ever going to change. See, a lot of people think it's very nice to be beneficial with the winning people. And it is. But if you want to work with people who are rejects, and I think that's who Christ worked with more than anybody else, you got to walk the second mile. And walking the second mile is not easy, I'll tell you. It's very, very difficult. But it does happen, and it makes a difference in people's lives. Look, crime is not spontaneous. I don't believe anybody just instantaneously decided to do that. There's stuff that builds up in us over a period of time. And we don't deal with it. Nobody helps us. And it gets so strong that all of a sudden we're doing things that we never believed we could do or would do. And it's a process that happens. And Jesus knew that what Zacchaeus had done didn't happen overnight. But he knew that Zacchaeus, if somebody started to tell him again and again that you're worth something, that you can change, that you can be forgiven, he knew that Zacchaeus could start a new way. And the minute that Zacchaeus was given hope, Zacchaeus broke and said, I want to make everything right. I want to be different. I don't want to be like this. Jesus Christ never looks down on people. If you don't hear anything else I say today, Jesus Christ never looks down on people. So today, we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving in a few days. Let's have it be more than food and more than a football game. Let it be a time for us to give thanks to God for allowing us to find blessing in the way we treat other people. Because as we treat other people with love and forgiveness, you know what? They see Jesus in us. Father, this morning, may we learn again and again that your way is the way that brings change. In thy name, amen.